Hey, it's JC. Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we explore the urban lifestyle and jungle survival. Today, I thought I'll share with you some of my thoughts and experience choosing a parang for jungle bushcraft. First, if you watch this channel regularly but have not subscribed, please do so to help the channel out. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, do check out my shop links in the pinned comment or description below. You can even join as a channel member. Thanks a lot. I've got a collection of parangs in front of me, different sizes, different blade shapes, and I've brought them out from time to time. Of course, I have some of my favorites, but do check out my playlist on parangs and machetes in the link in the card above or the description below. And there you can see individual reviews and videos on many of these parangs. But today I thought I'll give an overview of what to look out for when choosing a parang, specifically for jungle bushcraft. And I know that term can encompass a lot of different activities, so I'll cover those as well. I'll start off with talking about blade steel first, because a lot of people are concerned with blade steel. Generally, most parangs are made from high carbon steel, most machetes as well. Of course, you have some makers now who would make it out of stainless steel, but the general consensus is that parangs should be made from a very tough steel, and a steel that is not very expensive, because the parang is a tool and it shouldn't cost so much to make and for someone to buy, and therefore high carbon steel tends to be the way to go, whether it's a Japanese steel like 5160, SUP 9A, or something like 1075, 1095, or the British 0102. These are all very popular high carbon steel choices, and honestly they'll all work for the parang because they are tough and you can always get a keen edge with sharpening it, and they're generally easy to sharpen. So go with a tough steel rather than a harder steel that might chip, because a parang is meant for heavy duty work. You can go for a harder steel for your belt knife. So that's about steels. Let's talk about length next. I think there are two things that determine the length of the parang for you. The first is your activity, and the second is your physical size or stature. So let's talk about the activity. If you're going for a hike and engaging in some light bushcraft, or you just want a nice big belt knife on you for general cutting tasks, well, this is quite a popular choice, an 8-inch blade, and these are the Duku Chandong pattern, or very similar to the Chandong pattern. That's what it's called, is this specific shape, sheepswood style blade. So you don't have a sheepswood style, so you don't have a pointed blade because there's no need to really pierce it. It's good for safety, and generally you'll be using the cutting edge for cutting tasks in the jungle. So these are 8-inch blades, but let's say you're a taller and larger person, let's say 6 foot and bigger, this might seem like a small blade for you. Then go for a 10-inch blade as your go-to blade. So 8 to 10 inch, I think, really good for that hiking and light bushcraft work. If you're going out to do some bushcraft work, just general tasks, again, you're not doing anything too crazy, again, the 8, 10, or even a 12-inch might work. So these are all 10-inch parangs over here. So I find this personally the sweet spot right now for me. Now, if I'm just doing hiking and light bushcraft, yes, 8 inches is something I'd still recommend, especially for beginners. But for me, myself, I found that a 10-inch is a good sweet spot for myself. Now, the longer parangs, 12 inches and above, those I find really big and unwielding at times. But if you're much taller, much bigger, you might gravitate towards that 12-inch parang. Now, what about the really longer parangs, 14 inches and more? That's what I consider really big. Well, those are really good for trail clearing. If you're going out to the jungle specifically to bash, to get through a trail, or maybe to do some clearing, something like this 18-inch Tramontina would be really good. Very inexpensive, high carbon steel, very thin blade, so it's not meant so much for chopping, but it's meant for slicing and just clearing. However, the fit and finish is not great, but the good thing is you can kind of modify it yourself. So I sanded this down, oiled it with linseed oil twice, and you get this nice dark look. If not, it's got quite a light handle. But they'll be very good for bashing and clearing if you're comfortable with such a long blade. Now, this parang over here, this is the Chopra by BMC, or British Machete Company, and it's a really big, beefy, heavy blade, very thick, long, stout, and it's designed as a chopper. Now, if you can manage something so big and something so thick, then by all means go for something like that. But personally for me, when it comes to a parang, I don't see it as primarily a chopping tool. Something like this is too big and heavy for me to really do as a multi-purpose tool. Its main job is to chop, but then I'll prefer to bring a saw instead, or maybe you might prefer a hatchet. So I want a parang generally to have multi-purpose usage. I want to be able to slice, cut and chop if I need. And I find that the 8-inch to 12-inch parang range would be the way to go, again depending on your physical stature. So this is the Condor Pack Golok, very nice full tang design blade, but I do find it a bit too hefty, the handle also too big for my needs. It is supposed to follow the Golok pattern, which has a pointed blade. So these two are Golok patterns. This one's I guess their kind of version of it, just so it's not so sharp there. But I find this too heavy for general purpose, very good as a chopper, but then again I do not want a parang just specifically for chopping. So talking about patterns, Chandong, these are the village Chandong pattern, similar to this, but you can see slimmer neck over here. This is more unique. This is the Parang Turong by FF Blades, but it follows the lading kind of a pattern, which is a specific self-defense pattern, but it's also great for clearing because it's so nimble, and that's what I primarily use this particular Turong for, but great for delimbing and slicing as well. And I also changed this handle from wood to micarta, and I shared that in the previous video as well. This pattern, as mentioned, is the Golok, right? So it's really got that pointed tip and then that large belly. Some of the Malaysian parangs, depending on the state, would have a recurve as well. So these both are Goloks. This is made in Malaysia. This is the Tops Yakare, much higher end 1095 steel full tang, very solid blade. And something like this, to me, great all-round survival machete or parang, in my opinion. If I wanted something dependable to go in to be able to chop, slice, do finer work, this is something I probably want to carry. In terms of handles, you can get everything from plastic handles to wood handles, from hardwood to different sort of exotic woods to micarta or G10 handles. Personally, I do prefer micarta. I'm okay with wood as long as it's a hardwood and the wood doesn't shrink. The thing with some parangs like this, so this is a custom parang, I carried for a long time. It uses hardwood handles, and I did soak this with linseed oil and I maintain it, but it's still shrunk. So what happens is, initially this is a full tang, so it's really flush with the blade, but now you can kind of see that tang is exposed at the top and even below, so it's not as comfortable. So that's the thing about some wood knives. If you do full tang, sometimes the wood can shrink and then it gets misaligned with the tang. Something like this, which is from my parang, they do a great rat tang style blade. So that means the tang is inside and it's not a full tang, but the handle becomes very comfortable and it will never go out of shape, so to speak. So speaking about tangs, you have the full tang and you have the rat tang parangs. Traditionally for Malaysian parangs, they are all rat tang, and several reasons for that, due to the traditional construction method. Also, if you need to replace it, it's easier to replace the handle. But modern kind of knife making and consumer demand, they do like that full tang blade, so you can get it as well from more modern makers. Personally, for me, for the good brands of the Malaysian parangs, which are rat tang, absolutely no problem whatsoever in terms of worrying that it will fail or will come out. It just won't happen. It's very unlikely to happen, although I will admit that chances are a full tang is going to be stronger than a rat tang, but to me, not enough to really worry about, unless maybe you think you're going for a long expedition and you want a survival type parang. Then yeah, maybe go with the full tang then. I should mention what sort of parang not to get. Here's an example of a parang I would not get. For example, something like this. This is more of a cosplay machete. You might call it a wall hanger. And basically, because the metal is not that great, the handle is really uncomfortable. So there's no way you could really use this without getting, fatigued. There's this guard which would bite into your thumb, and this hollow grind as well, just not practical for a working parang. You'd find that for all real working parangs, you might get a convex grind, a saber grind, like that, or you might get a full flat grind like that Tramontina. But generally you want a thick spine that looks really good, and then it may taper down depending on the grind, whether it's a saber grind like this or that convex grind. So it's just something to take note of. Now let's end off by just talking about sheaths very quickly. Now many parangs might come with nylon sheaths, and that's because these are inexpensive options, and of course the quality may vary depending on the make. Some could be really thin like that, some could be really sturdy like this from Tops, and you might get it in between as well. So these generally are inexpensive and they might come with the sheath. You could also get something like a PVC sheath. So these are generally cheap. You can get these in Malaysia for those hardware store parangs. They do the job, but they won't last a long time. Of course, you can get really good high quality leather sheaths. This is from Condor. They make great sheaths, comes with a pack go lock. So something like that, well made, will last a long time, but I just find it's hard to deploy when this is on your belt. So my personal favorite would be Kydex. So here are examples of Kydex sheaths. Now Kydex sheaths can vary in quality as well. These are really thin Kydex sheaths, about just 1 or 1.5 millimeters. They work, they're serviceable, but not particularly great, or I don't have a pleasure of using them. Here's a really good Kydex sheath. This is the one that comes with the BMC Chopra. Excellent design, multiple ways you can deploy, and just a secure fit, and that's a thick 2mm Kydex. And my own personal Kydex sheath would be this one. This one by Marinized out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, custom made for my village, Chandong, but just 2mm Kydex, great hardware and great components. So those are your choices of sheaths, and I would say don't be afraid to buy a parang that may not come with a sheath or comes with a low quality sheath. You can always upgrade your own sheath to make it better. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to choose a parang for a jungle bushcraft. If you think I missed out on anything important, do let me know, or if you've got any questions, do ask me in the comments below. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.